Yahoo!
If there's one part of the 90s internet I remember vividly, it was chat rooms. I found nothing stranger yet exciting than sitting down at my computer, logging onto chat.yahoo.com and entering into a room full of people talking all at once and occasionally asking ASL. Well, more than occasionally, in your general direction. It's like if you were in a nightclub with no music and instead everyone's conversations were broadcast over the speaker system. An overwhelming nightmare of horror. But yet, despite their chaos, despite the unease, despite the slight sense of shame, these chat rooms were fascinating, they were eye-opening, and they were addictive. Within these rooms was a cross-section of humanity, a cross-section that was largely very different from the interaction you'd find down your local social club. In fact, it was very often a breeding ground of abject horror. Yahoo were early to the internet party. In fact, we're talking almost 30 years ago. It was a young David Philo and Jerry Yang who in January 1994 decided to create a digital tracker of their favourite websites. Initially, this was just a list maintained for personal use, but it soon grew so large that different categories had to be made, followed by different subcategories, until it was so large and useful that they eventually decided to turn it into a website itself. Originally called Jerry's Guide to the World Wide Web, this site became so popular, we're talking 100,000 visits by May 1994, that it was renamed to Yahoo. Which, although is claimed to stand for yet another hierarchical officious oracle by the company, is denied by Jerry and David, instead saying they just liked the way it sounded. By March 1995, Yahoo was incorporated and by the following year had gone public. In these early days, it was a directory of internet sites rather than a search engine as we know it. But it would soon advance to web crawling functionality, whilst also offering email, web page hosting, and anything else you could possibly want from your internet front page. Although not pioneers of most of their services, Yahoo knew what the internet wanted and knew how to group them together. By 1997, and with the internet growing at a rapid pace, they had decided that chat was also an essential ingredient to this mix. And of course they were right, because the heart of the internet is connecting with people and socialising. Internet chat was kind of like being in a bar, but from the comfort of your own home. But in either case, you could have a drink whilst doing it. So big thanks to sponsor ZBiotics. I really want to call it Z being English, but no, it's ZBiotics. And they have created the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It's designed for drinking before alcohol to help avoid that somewhat rough next morning lull and get back on with your life. And it's based around the problem not being dehydration, but actually a toxic byproduct of the alcohol, which ZBiotics actually breaks down, acetaldehyde. Drink it before having a few sociable bevies, and it will work throughout the evening to help you feel fresher the next day. Combine it with healthy and responsible drinking, and maybe you'll be able to get out of bed before midday. You lazy bastard. ZBiotics is vegan, sugar-free, and gluten-free, and you can get 15% off your first order by clicking the link below and using my code NERD22 at checkout. Go to zbiotics.com/nerd22 and get 15% off your first order. Launching on the 5th of January 1997, this is what Yahoo Chat looked like back then. You get a chat window, a list of users, a box to type your chat in, and an advert. Rather than being Yahoo's own creation, this was actually a collaboration with Austin-based iChat. iChat had been running since 1996, offering people the ability to connect and chat about different topics, but it wasn't well known. Yahoo, on the other hand, was well known, and so it offered people to connect on a whole new scale. At this point there were a series of core different rooms, but most people just jumped into the general room and begun typing away. Back then, everything was running on HTML 2.0, and most visitors were using Internet Explorer or Netscape Navigator 3. If you were using something older, then you'd have to refresh your entire page to see any new chats added since your last refresh. Handily, the site would do this automatically every 30 seconds or so, but with so many people in the same room, it also meant you'd be faced with a barrage of messages, making any form of useful communication a bit difficult. Thankfully, if you were using a compatible browser, you could install a 1 MB plugin that would make the whole experience much more streamlined. This also allowed you to use something called emotion tags, whatever they were. Media outlets were quick to report on this new method of communication.
It's okay now, I'm here.
The Atlanta Constitution wrote, "The debut of Yahoo Chat last week found just a handful visiting the hundreds of rooms key to Yahoo's familiar topic areas: arts and entertainment, business and economy, computers and the internet. Thousands jammed the all-purpose chat instead, where they were segregated into groups of 25. Scintillating chatroom dialogue ensued, such as this exchange: 'Are you a cheesehead? What's a cheesehead?' But it wasn't long before things escalated. As in most general chat rooms, talk soon gave way to flirtation. Serious flirtation. Still more serious flirtation, and plenty of heavy chatting. But as the week progressed, a few visitors began to dip a toe into rooms keyed to sports, travel, and music. Chat rooms weren't new, but this new mass-scale chat room was, so people were excited to be seen. They were excited to experience chat on a global scale, with thousands of other people. But interestingly, people had quickly begun to also use chat to discuss topics that interested them, indicating that Yahoo was spot on the money again. The chat room feature was here to stay. But naturally, humankind had also found its baseline of talking sex, something that would blight the company for years to come.
Yahoo?
By 1998, Yahoo weren't just on our computers, they were on our televisions, with a plethora of adverts aimed at getting everyone online and setting Yahoo as their homepage. In fact, Yahoo were becoming so embedded into our computing experience that you could get a Yahoo keyboard, complete with a button to take you straight to their website, or even a mouse that allows you to scroll the internet in 4 dimensions. Crazy stuff. By March 9th, 1998, it also witnessed a new accessory for fans of chat: Yahoo Pager. This new downloadable application offered new emoticons, environments so you could set the mood, typing notifications, but importantly a much more personal experience. And by that, I mean as well as having access to rooms, you could now chat to other Yahoo members directly. This is the dawn of chat apps like WhatsApp, but way back in 1998. Well, actually, Yahoo were again a bit slow on this one, and since 1996 there had already been chat applets like ICQ offering instant messaging, and upon Yahoo offering this service, naturally AOL would do the same by purchasing ICQ for $287 million, with another $120 million in performance-based payments in June 1998. Not a bad return on investment for the 5 Israeli developers behind it. But Yahoo had acquired something many hadn't. They had acquired a cross-section of the world's population so diverse and far-reaching that if you wanted to chat to someone, Yahoo was probably the best way to do it. In fact, it would be another year before Microsoft launched their own software, MSN Messenger, which would also see Yahoo rebrand Pager to Yahoo Messenger. But throughout all of this, and away from your buddy list of curated contacts, Yahoo Chat remained active. At any time, you could just drop into a room and talk to someone, anyone, at random. Now, you're watching my channel, so I'm sure I don't have to patronize you with what these words mean, but I'm going to anyway. Age, sex, location. If you were to search the archives of Yahoo Chat, this would come up almost certainly more than any other phrase. It's an icebreaker, it's a data gatherer, it's a way for perverts to find out who to prey on, and it's the start of the end for Yahoo Chat. If you were asked ASL at any point, you'd stop and you'd type. What you typed might not be correct, but you'd answer nevertheless. 20, male, UK. You can't type Norwich because then everyone would be like, where the hell is Norwich? So UK it is. But of course, this information was dangerous to the point where people are still sharing their stories about it on the internet to this day. User K1L2L3Y writes,
The Pokemon room on Yahoo Chat, packed to the brim with people trading / asking for child pornography. Used to go in there and do the usual 12/F/NY thing and just watch them try and groom you.
So true. When we were in high school, my friend Megan told me about this. As soon as she said she was a teenage girl, her screen would be flooded with chat windows. I didn't believe her at the time, probably because I was still naive about this sort of stuff. So she went into some random Yahoo chat room and said something like 16/F/CA. We couldn't close Windows fast enough. It was insane.
No need to do it as a minor. Just say you are female on some website populated with horny guys wanting to get off. I assure you, it's impossible to follow everything. It should be training for CEO that need to learn better multitasking. God forbid you answer after 30 seconds. You get chewed on.
And there's even a more detailed account from a user who has since been deleted.
I used to go into a Yahoo chat room called Beyond Planet Earth, and it was filled with the strangest of characters. It was a pretty small room. I got to know all the people as I spent a lot of time in there. The mix of characters was typically super nerds obsessed with NASA rovers, or drugged out hippies obsessed with aliens. Two guys used to stand up pretty well as freaks. One was called Robot Something, and he was some 30 to 40-year-old guy from New Jersey. He would be pretty cool most of the time, but something could trigger him off, and he would go into a perverted mode and start talking about Paris Hilton's sex tape. Used to creep me out a lot. The other guy was called Eagle of Arrow. He was so much fun. Like the robot, he had certain triggers that would make him go off on rants, but the complete opposite to Robot. That I think he was the main reason why so many people came to the room, as it was so funny to watch him blow up. His catchphrase was say anal deviant. If someone new to the chat room came in, they would normally be called an anal deviant within 5 minutes. This wasn't just done to one or two people. This was done to everyone and could happen at any time.
Now, I've used computer-generated voices to try and put some distance between us and reality, but even with all of that, all of this is deeply disturbing. It reminds us of our worst fears about the internet, and it's truly upsetting to know that young people were actually experiencing this and living through it. This was a time before parents or guardians had much insight into internet safety, and often didn't even realize it was possible to talk to dubious and concerning characters with zero barriers to entry. These were the Wild West days of online interaction, and much like the Wild West, it wasn't pretty. But with all of this, it's nothing you wouldn't expect. The internet can be a great place for collaboration, interaction, change and progression, but it can also be a grim hellhole of prejudice and disgusting individuals. And these are just stories from the text chat side of things. However, it goes deeper. In 1999, Yahoo added the ability for voice chat, and this also included voice chat rooms. In fact, a clip of the aforementioned Avero still exists to this day.
If you got a firewall, I recommend you get yourself a firewall urgently. In this room, there are too many anal deviants that don't want any worthwhile discussion.
Now, it's hard to be sure about context, but judging by the slurs he's using, Avero probably isn't a stand-up guy, but yet was lauded over by other people in the chat room, because he didn't seem as bad as most of the others. If that's not a red flag for the early internet, I don't know what is. But yet it's still almost like that kind of chat you'd hear on a modern day Call of Duty server, just without a game to distract you in the process. Even so, this is unfair because it wasn't all like this. Chat rooms were still fun, for the most part. Now, if you were going to enter a voice chat room, you'd probably arm yourself with something like this. A quick-shot computer microphone. The quality wasn't going to blow anyone away. But then, armed with a 56k modem, it didn't really matter what microphone you used. The compression and sampling frequency would have you squinting your ears in no time regardless.
Hello? I'm Weird Walter!
Now this, as you've just heard, is Weird Walter.
Hello everybody! Would anybody out there like to be my friend? Be my friend!
Yeah, thanks, Walter. Now, Walter is the type of guy you'd find frequenting chat rooms from the year 2000 onwards, and this is him doing some of his greatest work.
Would you like to be my friend?
Damn, you ain't a weird fella.
Okay, that's enough, Walter. His real name, by the way, is Robbie Strike, and he's had a YouTube channel since the beginning. We're talking almost as long as Ashen's. Honestly, I struggle to believe that YouTube is this old, but even older was nothingtodo.tv, which is where this clip was originally uploaded and where Robbie did his original thing.
Do you smell la 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 la?
I'll get some of your mouth.
What an absolute pioneer. Walter may have represented a more fun side of Yahoo chat rooms, but underneath it all, that base underbelly was still at work, and it was causing Yahoo some real problems. And much of what went on in the chat rooms was worrying in one way or another.
I will come after you or your family. I don't care.
I'm sitting here listening to you people try to justify goddamn it killing somebody.
I'm armed all the time. I'd love to shoot some motherfucker.
Oh my God, calm down.
Glow thinks he's gonna shut me up. He thinks he could do something.
Were you up here talking about you kicked ass in the fight room? Because you can barely think a solitary sentence. I don't think you do. I don't think you did. And you absolutely never kicked my ass, your little gimp boy.
Anyone who frequented the fight room will understand exactly what was happening there. And the reason it was happening, the reason why people felt comfortable unleashing their innermost expressions, was down to anonymity. Chat rooms were giving a platform for people to be untethered from the rules of normal life, to test the waters, to express themselves in a way they would probably be afraid of in everyday life. And to many, that was an addictive notion.
Our mother is addicted to chat rooms, and it is causing the breakup of our family.
But it was those underlying lascivious desires which were still pounding a nail into Yahoo's coffin, if you'll excuse the pun. On Wednesday, May the 16th, 2001, the New York Times reported, a month after Yahoo, the internet service, eliminated a section that offered pornographic videos from its shopping area, the company has begun making it harder for users to find sexually explicit chat rooms and clubs. The action has sparked anger and fear among users, prompting thousands of them to sign a petition demanding that the company continue to maintain the popular online forums. Controversial website webmastercast.com lashed back. In one swift action, Yahoo has completely removed the entire adult section from Yahoo clubs and Yahoo groups. If Yahoo does take the sexual clubs off its sites, it would be a blow to free speech everywhere. But Yahoo in reality hadn't removed anything. All it had done was push them into deeper links, deeper subcategories, in an effort to tidy up its front-facing image whilst allowing people to find what they seek as long as they dug deep enough. Of course, this might have sounded good to some segments of society, but it did absolutely nothing to restrict predators from the main chat rooms. In fact, it was about to make it a whole lot worse. In June 2001, Yahoo announced video chat capability to its messenger service. You couldn't enter a chat room full of other video callers, at least not initially. The bandwidth just wasn't there for that, but you could interact with someone in a chat room and then connect with them directly via Yahoo Messenger.
There's a telephone call for you.
Talking to you.
Why not? Why wouldn't you be my friend?
Lady Cheeks writes,
When I was around 14, I talked to this younger guy. I think he was in his 20s because he said he was in university. He was really nice, and I really enjoyed talking to him. But then he wanted to see me on webcam. I got on and didn't do anything. But then he started pushing. He was actually normal looking. So like I said, I actually thought of him as more of a friend. Anyways, one time he said he wanted me to be more revealing with him. It also freaked me out and I felt really uncomfortable, so I blocked him and didn't want to talk to him anymore. He got mad at me and sent me a lot of rude offline messages. I was really sad, but it was damn weird.
And this wasn't just happening on Yahoo Chat. By June 2002, MSN also had video chat functionality, and even more obscure platforms like Excite Chat had their own issues. However, being the figurehead of online chat to a lot of people, Yahoo had to deal with it. Interestingly, it seemed Yahoo's initial way of dealing with it was just to improve their features, both within Messenger and the chat platform, which was now accessible from the Messenger app. We had new emotes, avatars, and even audibles.
Seriously? Are you even trying?
I hope you don't slip while I'm mopping the floor with you.
Oh, that's gotta hurt.
So tell me, what's it like to lose so badly?
Arguably, this made everything even more creepy and did nothing to sweep away the more serious problems. In October 2005, and with advertisers pulling ads from their site, Yahoo made the move to shut down their popular teen chat. Yahoo claimed they had made the horrific discovery that some of these chat rooms promoted underage sex. Yeah, no shit. Overnight, these rooms were purged from their servers, and by June 2006, another 70,000 user-created chat rooms had been expunged, along with some users who were identified as misusing the service. Seriously, some of the names of these chat rooms were horrifically self-explanatory, and it's shocking they weren't picked up on before. Many were found in the schools and education chat categories too. Shortly after, the company announced it would be restricting the service to users aged 18 and over, although, as with most online activities, the enforcement of that was possibly less than satisfactory. So, the internet was tidied up in a way that only a corporate entity would tidy it up, just like a fly tipper dumping rubbish out in a farmer's field, where hardly anyone could see it. But Yahoo still had other problems. One of those was booters.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I get every day.
This right here is footage of David Radnicki getting booted on Yahoo Messenger. But what are booters? Well, a booter is a piece of software that exploited many of the security flaws in Messenger's design, with the sole purpose of absolutely barraging a recipient with random chats and information. Of course, Messenger would do its best to keep up with all these incoming chats until it crashed, often requiring the recipient to reboot their computer. The only problem was, once you rebooted and logged back into Messenger, you'd probably get the same onslaught right away. Someone could just find you in a chat room, take offense to you, and issue a tirade. Blocking the user chatting to you had little to no effect, as booter software could just make up more screen names, leaving you dead in the water. Incredibly, Yahoo Chat would limp on for several years, despite being faced with a multitude of other spam issues and security problems, including reports that the government was pulling data directly from chat streams.
A British news outlet reported today that the governments of the U.S. and the United Kingdom have been literally peering into the lives of Americans and Britons.
Many of the core users had already left when user-created rooms were abolished, and those that remained were faced with an ever-increasing number of bots who just spammed rooms with advertising, hate, innuendo, or just utter garbage. By 2012, and 15 years after opening up the service, Yahoo had decided that enough was enough. That chat was no longer viable, either from a business sense, a technological sense, or a PR sense. There was no ceremony, there was no big announcement. Yahoo simply put up a simple blog post stating, "The Yahoo Messenger public chat rooms will close down on December the 14th, 2012. Although it promised an alternative would follow. However, it didn't. The noisy chatter of Yahoo disappeared, and people were forced into paid alternatives or lower quality sites which never really had the traffic to make it as exciting or compelling as Yahoo's original formula. Yahoo Messenger, although a complementary product for chat, could never really compete with AOL's AIM and the later dominance of MSN Messenger, not to mention the new world of Facebook and WhatsApp which was blowing up around us. And although it limped on for a while, its demise would follow in 2016. Well, as we know it anyway, various revisions followed until it was finally axed in 2018.
This is Yahoo Together, a new app that helps you organize your groups.
Okay, 2019 then. Not that chat rooms died out entirely, of course. Today we have more focused chatting setups like Discord that allow particular fan bases to connect and chat. You can even join voice chat rooms on Twitter if that's your thing. But the fun and excitement we once knew, well, that seems to have gone. I only wish that some of the seedy antics that went with it were also a thing of the past. Yahoo Chat was a weird place. On one hand, it offered space to socially interact, to explore and to connect with new people. It was an exciting time. On the other hand, it was abused, and in doing so, some of the most at-risk people on the internet became victims. I remember it fondly, but countless others will not. So, like a lot of things, chat rooms were great. They were great up until the point that they were not. Until next time, I've been Nostalgia Nerd. Toodaloo.